Fourth individual or head of a family office. Let Burden help protect you, your family, and your business.
For more tax chat from Burden Accountants and Advisors, visit BurdenLLP.com. That's BERDON LLP.com. Burden Accountants and Advisors. We listen, we solve, we do.
Traffic and weather on Bloomberg 1130. Pretty heavy delays on Harlem River Drive heading north. That ramp by the Willis Avenue Bridge from the FDR is currently closed because of an accident. That's creating quite the backup on the northbound side of the FDR. Over on the west side, highway traffic moves well from the GWB down to 57th Street. Barely moving in Brooklyn on the Gowanus Expressway. Back there from the Belt Parkway merge all the way up to the Brooklyn Batteries Tunnel, and then heading north right up to the Brooklyn Bridge. Give yourself about 30 minutes to make that trip. Now the Bloomberg weather. Mainly sunny for today and about 55 for tomorrow. Cloudy with light rain or drizzle, again 55. For Monday, clouds and sun mix and about 60 degrees. Tuesday, Wednesday were mostly cloudy. Threat of a shower each day and 60. It's 40 right now, and Steve Michaels with the best ride in and out of the city. Bloomberg 1130. And now Bloomberg Sports.
Today's the Final Four at the NCAA tournament. The opener has Villanova taking on Kansas. Tonight will be North Carolina battling rival Duke. UConn women beat Stanford 63-58 to advance to the national championship game Sunday against South Carolina. The Knicks host the Cavaliers while the Nets visit the Hawks. At the Garden, Islanders shut out the Rangers 3-0. Spring training, Yankees over the Tigers 6-2. Cardinals down the Mets 7-2. Mets pitcher Jacob deGrom is out indefinitely with a shoulder injury. That's a Bloomberg Sports Update. I'm Joel Stern.
From the financial capital of the world, broadcasting across the globe, this is WBBR New York, Bloomberg 1130. Now, a global news update. The U.S. is pledging another $300 million in military aid to Ukraine. The Defense Department said Friday that aid will include laser-guided rockets, drones, armored vehicles, ammunition, machine guns, and night vision. So far, the Biden administration's provided over $1.6 billion in assistance to Ukraine during the Russian invasion. The Red Cross says it'll try again today to evacuate Ukrainian citizens from the port city of Mariupol. Reports say tens of thousands are trapped in the city with little food or water. While Brad Siegel tells us an operation's underway across Europe to protect Ukraine's artwork.
The Venice Civic Museum's foundation is set to send special fabric to cover the some 65,000 paintings and 2,000 sculptures stored away at Lviv's National Gallery and other museums throughout Ukraine. The fabric will protect the prized works from most solvents and gases and also help prevent mold and fungus while the pieces are being stored. Also being sent are polyethylene foam shock-resistant panels. Venice Museum's experts also gave advice in a video call with the Lviv Gallery's management about how to best store the art. I'm Brad Siegel.
The latest U.S. jobs report says the unemployment rate dropped to a two-year low of 3.6% last month. The White House says that's down from 3.8% in February. The economy also added another 431,000 jobs in March. Economic advisor Jared Bernstein notes that job numbers have not returned to pre-pandemic levels, but that the target's not far off. The Southeast is bracing for more possible tornadoes. Forecasters warn another round of severe thunderstorms could hit Sunday night through Tuesday from Texas to Georgia. It's a dip in the jet stream, says AccuWeather. They could cause cold, dry air from the north to collide with warm, humid air from the Gulf. The storms could cause flash flooding, hail, and damaging wind gusts from southern Oklahoma to the Florida Panhandle. They say isolated tornadoes are possible. I'm Scott Carr. In Washington, the House has approved a bill that would legalize marijuana at the federal level. The vote in the House, 220 to 204. Most states have already taken such steps, either for medicinal or recreational purposes. This bill would remove marijuana from the federal list of scheduled controlled substances and force courts to clear any related convictions. The Democratic measure now faces an uncertain future in the evenly divided U.S. Senate. The final pre-trial hearing is underway now for the Parkland, Florida shooter Nicholas Cruz. Jury selection is set to start this coming week. The state and the defense have been debating which questions will be asked of the prospective jurors.
Give us their general, not in regards to this case, feelings about the death penalty.
Okay.
So that would be the only question about the death penalty in the questionnaire. The state certainly feels that this is a questionnaire we should get some feedback on the death penalty.
The judge and attorneys in the case have been discussing some courtroom rearranging because of the high-profile nature of the case and the increased personnel required in the courtroom.
Because to me, a simple solution might be moving the state's table over a little bit and then extending your table that way. That would be fine. But I don't, if they don't move over, they've already moved them as much as they can.
Cruz's trial is expected to last 4 to 6 months. Actor Tom Hanks will throw out the first pitch at the Cleveland Guardians' 2022 home opener later this month. That'll be at Progressive Field April 15th when the Guardians face off with the Kansas City Royals. Hanks recently voiced a video introducing the team's name change, known for his hit role as a baseball manager, of course, in the movie A League of Their Own. Former Republican vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin makes a return to politics and announcing she'll run for Alaska's lone congressional seat that was left vacant last week after the death of longtime Representative Don Young. Palin will run against nearly 40 other candidates looking to fill that seat. I'm Scott Carr.
And I'm Susanna Palmer in the Bloomberg Newsroom. Parents, don't throw your kids' masks away just yet. The state appellate court ruled last night that the Adams administration's mask mandate for children under 5 can remain in place for now. The stay comes after a Staten Island court ruling earlier in the day struck down the city's mask mandate, calling it arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable. Score one for the labor movement, and maybe more than one. On Friday, labor activist Christian Small led the union he founded, the Amazon Labor Union, to victory at one of Amazon's warehouses on Staten Island. Workers there voting to unionize. A second vote is set for another Amazon warehouse on Staten Island, and the ALU is trying to sign up workers at 2 other facilities there. The S&P 500 rose Friday, even after the monthly U.S. jobs report showed a strong labor market. Investors think that makes it more likely the Federal Reserve may hike interest rates more and faster. The U.S. added close to 500,000 jobs in March, and the unemployment rate fell to 3.6%. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh says there's still more to do.
When we think about moving forward into 2022, 1.6 million people still need to return back to the workforce. How do we get those folks back to work?
U.S. job growth remains solid while inflation is red hot, and that points to an economy that's running too hot, according to former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers.
We do not do anybody a favor by overheating the economy, because when we overheat the economy, the chickens do come home to roost at some point as the inflation has to leave the system.
Summers was a guest on Bloomberg's Wall Street Week with David Weston. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Susanna Palmer. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Bloomberg Quick Takes Tim Stenovic on Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, I'm Carol Messer.
And I'm Tim Stenovic.
Plenty ahead in our second hour of the weekend edition of Bloomberg Business Week, including a deep dive into Chipotle's ascent in the stock market and in the minds of burrito lovers everywhere. My conversation with longtime CFO Jack Hartung.
Plus, our Bloomberg team takes a look at a plastic bag's 2,000-mile journey and what it says about the state of global recycling and sustainability efforts.
I was kind of depressed after that story.
Really depressed.
Oh, my God. Unbelievable story. It was also one of the Bloomberg big takes this week. First up this hour, new context for a recent Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health study that was published in The Lancet, showing the pandemic pushed more women out of the labor force than men during the early months of the crisis, reversing decades of progress in education and gender equality.
With that in mind, we turn to Bertina Ciccarelli, CEO of the nonprofit Empower. It works to move people from poverty to the middle class through tech skills training and job placement programs.
We have certainly seen women of color in particular disproportionately impacted by this pandemic. with a great loss of economic stability and rising demands in terms of child care and elder care. So the problem is very real, and I think our opportunity is to identify ways in which we can create better pathways to accelerate another kind of career track that helps these women in particular gain an economic foothold.
If we talk about the inequities that are out there, the inequalities, you know, we used to talk about income gaps. That's not what it's about. It's about wealth creation, right? And how do you do it? And how do you help those that haven't had the same opportunities be on a better path to help create generational wealth and so on? And this is something we've certainly seen blacks and minorities that certainly haven't had the same access. Tell us about the research you guys are doing and the specific actions that maybe can move black women into positions in technology where it seems like every CEO, Bertina, that we talk to, they want tech workers.
Absolutely. It is everybody I talk to in the tech sector right now. It is the number one concern, is a perceived lack of talent. Let's start with what we know and what's really guided our research. Today we know that less than 5% of the tech workforce in America is comprised of women of color, specifically black, Hispanic, and American Indian women. And that's just an astonishing fact. And so we set out with this research really to understand two things. First, what should that percentage be? What should we be striving for as a society? And secondly, what might be some pathways to be able to reach a much more ambitious goal?
So what are
So
those?
that was how we framed.
So what are those pathways?
So, well, I'll tell you our findings, right? The three things that we walked away with this research that we've conducted in partnership with Burning Glass is first, and this really speaks to that question of the pathway. First, we found there are 500 job classifications right now today where there are similar skills, abilities, and qualifications required to do those jobs that are not in the tech sector, but tech adjacent. These are jobs like an electronic medical record specialist, right? An individual who needs to have knowledge of information systems, project management, customer service, quality assurance. And here's the interesting fact. In those 500 job categories we mapped for skill similarity, the percent of women of color in those jobs are 10%. So, you know, I have to say, when you said double the percent.
Let me jump in. I believe, talking about this with the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, Patrick Harker, and has done the same research in saying that there are so many skills that aren't in tech jobs that are very similar to skills that are needed in what would be classified as tech jobs, and yet those people aren't being shown or provided the opportunity to take that step into that tech community. So talk to me more about that. So how do we change that? How do we make that better?
So I think really where we identify this gap, where we know that there are skills that are halfway there and we can go the distance, is through short-term skills programs, bridge skills programs, like Empower and a number of others. And the way we think about this, right, it was important for us to put some dimension around how might we benchmark our success, and that's where the equation for equality comes in. When we have an equation for equality of 1, that's when we know the percent of women of color in tech jobs is equal to the percent of women in these tech-eligible jobs, those 500 that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get that 1 ratio, that means that the investments that we're making in bridge skilling programs, upskilling, recruitment, retaining practices, then we will have been successful. So I think the first priority is really to communicate to many of these women who have a lot of those skill similarity aspects, communicate the opportunities through these programs, providing the flexibility so that they can take these types of courses, which are often free, and get the required certifications and skills to be able to be connected to much higher paying jobs.
Bertina, you mentioned what happens when we reach that goal and how we reach that goal. Are you optimistic that that happens during our lifetimes? I mean, I just look at how slow we have been when it comes to progress within these realms.
Yeah, so I by nature am an optimist, and especially now. And the reason is because there is so much urgency in the business sector on finding great talent and investing in that talent. We have to do it. And, you know, for a long time, we've very laser focused as a society, rightly so, on K through 12. And we need to continue to do that. And there are great organizations like Girls Who Code and the Y and Urban Alliance those efforts need to persist. But we also need to recognize the urgency that today tech openings are up 30%. With these short-term programs, we can more quickly position these women to take the jobs that are open right now today.
That was Bertina Ciccarelli, CEO of N-Power.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Coming up next, why Chipotle is poised to keep its firm grip on the burrito business for years to come. There'll be some menu innovation, though, along the way.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You know, the queso has to come from somewhere.
It does. We're going to talk with the CFO of Chipotle on the other side. This is Bloomberg.
Tuesday, Bloomberg speaks exclusively with Kansas City Fed President Esther George.
Certainly, the committee has the tools it needs to respond to inflation.
What are her thoughts on the Fed's rate hike path and the outlook for the economy?
I think I'm open-minded to listening to the debates around that.
Kansas City Fed President Esther George.
The economy continues to grow.
Tuesday morning at 10 on Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Dear Calvary Hospital, it was April at the height of the pandemic. I was alone caring for my dying mom. If I brought her to a hospital, I couldn't stay with her. And every doctor and nurse simply refused to come into our house. That is until Calvary Hospice came and rescued us. Nurse Kelly immediately assessed Mom and guided me through every step on bringing her back to being comfortable and pain-free, physically and mentally. She was accessible 24/7 as we FaceTimed day and night. I was never concerned about Mom's safety. 8 days later, Mom passed on with dignity and grace, thanks to an angel called Nurse Kelly and a miraculous place called Calvary. Sincerely, Angela Calabrese.
This is Frank Calamari, president of Calvary Hospital. During this time, be assured that Calvary continues to provide the safest and healthiest environment for our staff, our patients, and their families.
Are you in possession of gold, silver, or platinum? Maybe even some rare coins or old paper money that you'd like to sell? Stack's Bowers Galleries offers top dollar with immediate cash payment and is one of the largest, most trusted and ethical dealers and auctioneers of numismatic items in the U.S. for 90 years. Come visit our location on Park Avenue between 57th and 58th today for a free, no-obligation appraisal of your precious metal bullion items, rare coins,